The rain was relentless, hammering against the cobblestone street as Clara sprinted through the dark, her coat soaked through, her heart pounding louder than the storm. She clutched a crumpled letter in her hand, its ink bleeding but still legible, the words seared into her mind. "Meet me at the clock tower at midnight. If you don't come, I'll know your answer." No signature, no explanation, just those words in a handwriting she hadn't seen in years. Clara didn't believe in fate, but as the clock tower loomed ahead, its hands ticking toward 12, she felt the weight of a choice she wasn't sure she was ready to make. Who had sent it? And why now, after all this time? 3 years earlier, Clara had been a different person, brighter, bolder, unafraid to chase what she wanted. She was 22, working as a barista in a cozy cafe in the heart of the city, her days filled with the hum of coffee machines and the chatter of strangers. That's where she met Elias. He wasn't like the usual customers, with their hurried orders and distracted glances. Elias lingered. He'd sit by the window with a book, his dark eyes flicking up to meet hers whenever she brought him his black coffee, no sugar. Their conversations started small, comments about the weather, a joke about a spilled latte. But soon they stretched into hours, the cafe emptying around them as they talked about dreams, fears, the lives they wanted to build. Elias was a painter, his hands always smudged with color, his voice soft but certain. He saw the world in hues Clara had never noticed before, and she felt herself falling, fast and hard. They spent a summer together, stealing moments between her shifts and his late-night painting sessions. They'd walk the city at dusk, sharing stories under the glow of streetlights, their fingers brushing until one of them was brave enough to hold on. Clara had never felt so alive, so seen. But love, she learned, could be as fragile as it was fierce. Elias had a restlessness in him, a hunger for something bigger than their small city could offer. When he got an offer to study art in Paris, Clara saw the spark in his eyes, the kind of spark she couldn't bear to dim. She told him to go, her voice steady even as her chest ached. They promised to stay in touch, to make it work across the distance. But promises are hard to keep when the world pulls you apart. Calls became texts, texts became silence, and by the time winter came, Elias was a memory Clara tucked away, like a photograph too painful to look at. Now, standing under the clock tower, Clara's breath caught as the bell tolled midnight. The street was empty, the rain blurring everything into shadows. She almost turned back, convinced this was a mistake, when a figure stepped into the light. Elias. His hair was longer, his face sharper, but those eyes, they were the same, searching hers like they had 1,000 times before. "You came," he said, his voice barely audible over the storm. Clara wanted to be angry, to demand why he'd vanished, why he'd sent a letter instead of a call, but all she could say was, "Why now?" Elias stepped closer, rain dripping from his coat. He told her he'd spent 3 years chasing his art, building a name for himself in Paris, but every painting, every stroke of his brush, carried her. He'd tried to move on, to convince himself she was better off without him, but the truth was stubborn. He'd come back to the city for an exhibition, his first big one, and the moment he stepped off the train, he knew he couldn't leave without seeing her. The letter was a coward's move, he admitted, but he'd been afraid she'd forgotten him. Or worse, that she'd say no. Clara's mind raced. She'd rebuilt herself in his absence, found a job she loved, friends who filled her days with laughter. She wasn't the girl who'd watched him leave, but standing there, she felt that girl stirring inside her, the one who'd believed in a love that could defy time and distance. "You hurt me," she said finally, her voice steady. "You left, and I had to figure out how to be okay without you." Elias nodded, his eyes never leaving hers. "I know, and I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you, if you'll let me." The rain slowed to a drizzle, the world quieting around them. Clara looked at the letter in her hand, its words smudged but still true. She thought about the years they'd lost, the pain of silence, but also the way her heart had leapt at the sight of him, the way it was leaping now, Love wasn't a straight line, she realized. It was messy, imperfect. But maybe that's what made it worth fighting for. She took a step toward him, her fingers brushing his, and for the first time in years, she felt the pieces of herself fall back into place. "I don't know if this will work," she said, a small smile breaking through. "But I'm here, aren't I?" Elias's face lit up, and he pulled her close, the warmth of him cutting through the cold. The clock tower chimed again, marking a new hour, a new beginning. As they stood there, wrapped in each other and the promise of tomorrow, the rain stopped, and the stars began to peek through the clouds, as if the universe itself was holding its breath.